it can be hard because we're humans, right? But sometimes we gotta look at the lighter side of things to get through the day. So I just say, just keep that positive energy flowing no matter what.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, and today I have Luis Martinez with us, and I'm super excited to have him here from We The Plug, and he's going to be telling us about his entrepreneurial journey, how he got here, and just what his ambitions are and goals are for the future. So, Luis, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be on. Appreciate you having me on. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. Currently, I'm in San Diego, California. I've been here since 2012 officially. Kind of got here through the Navy, and so I did that for a while. I got out, I did a couple other things, and then kind of found myself in the startup space and volunteering through different organizations, and then kind of found myself like in the crosshairs of kind of like, oh, you know what? I think I need to build my own company. I see an issue with this. And that's how I kind of, started with The Plug. And I guess we'll get into it when we can. So that's the short version about me.
Awesome. So let's start with that initial part of the journey, right? You're a kid growing up in Brooklyn. When you were doing that, were there any dreams of like starting your own business? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were, growing up in Brooklyn?
So first, I was a basketball player. I started playing basketball at probably 6 years old, playing the youth league. So I played on every level you can imagine. I played in youth league, biddies, which is junior high, high school, college, and professional. So I was very lucky to play on all different levels and played overseas. And so I was initially a basketball player. But in my early 20s, I did a lot of quote unquote entrepreneurial things. Some were good, some were, not so, good, but I'll talk about the good ones for this one. So this is probably 2000 through 2001. So I had a period where I was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. For those that may remember Kirby vacuum cleaners. So really going door to door and selling to people and doing that kind of stuff. And I actually got some sales and, was pretty decent at it. I wasn't selling hotcakes off the shelves, but, I sold a couple and made a couple dollars. And then probably 2001, I actually transitioned on my spare time, actually selling the internet. And this is when the internet was in its, I wouldn't say beginning phases, but like, it was just getting into the Web 2 stage for those that are technically sound. It was just in the beginning of the Web 2. And it's when they were selling like the internet and the phone together and all that good stuff. And so I was early in tech, like just, in it. And I saw a lot of things, a lot of people making a lot of great money. And it was great. I sold a couple of that as well. But I was a basketball player and my focus was, at the time I was in junior college. So my goal was to get a 4-year scholarship and then, possibly play overseas, which I did. But I didn't really get back into the entrepreneurship game until way later, when I was, damn near like 35, 36. So.
Yeah. And, like they say, black don't crack. Cause I'm like, when you were just 35, 36, like you still look younger than that now.
I'm a tad bit older than that.
I'm counting in my head, like, this math is not math.
I'm a tad bit older than that. So
no problem. So, okay. You're a basketball player, you go overseas, you kind of focus on that, how did you get from that to the Navy? So you're overseas, you're playing basketball. What happened to transition you from basketball to the Navy?
Yeah, and so it was a lot of things, life, and I was there for like 3 years, right? No, actually 4 years. And what happened was like the job started getting dried up, and so the money wasn't in Europe. They were going through, I guess, their version of
Like a recession?
Yes, thank you. And so the money wasn't as much. And another reason was because the divisions were getting so basketball level overseas had different divisions. And so depending on the division, you get paid a certain amount. So I was playing in the league just below the top league in Europe. And so you're getting a pretty decent amount. You're getting 200, 300K, like that's, pretty good for somebody pretty young. And obviously as you get older and you get better, you get paid more, blah, 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 just like anything else.
Yeah.
But they went through that recession and, the money wasn't, going out as much. And there was an influx of more players. And so there were more basketball teams, but the pay was small. So it's like, I might as well go to McDonald's if you're going to pay me like this wage. Like it got that bad. So, I was like, I can't do this or whatever. So I was just playing in, mini leagues back home. And, they would pay small, $500, but at least I was home getting paid $500. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a coach, he discovered me, and which I knew him prior, but he was just like, hey, I'm coaching in the Navy. I got some connections, blah, blah, blah. Like, you should definitely think about going to the Navy if you're trying to, do something. And other several events happened in my life. And I was just like, you know what? I got to get out of here. Like, I got to save myself. I got to find a future. So I ended up enlisting in the Navy in 2007. I ended up going in 2008 because when you sign up, you have to go through this like DEP program. I forget what it's called, delayed entry
program.
Yes, thank you. And you have to go into the DEP program. And so I was in there for a while, and obviously they do they teach you, they prepare you for boot camp, but it's never the same as when you actually go. But went into 2008. Then my first year I played in Italy. So I was on the All Navy team. We played in Italy. We played different teams. We also played in the Armed Forces tournament, which is, we play against, the Marines, or we play against the Air Force. The Air Force always won, by the way. They always won the tournament.
Because isn't like the Air Force like the more like, what is it? I think they said like a more aggressive or strict ones. Like if they were to like rank it as like the Air Force.
It's actually so there's a nickname for them. It's called the Chair Force. Oh. So because they don't really do nothing, but they have the most high profile jobs. So like if I was to advise anyone to go into the military, I would tell them to go into the Air Force and then the Navy. So the Air Force is definitely, you get a decent job, in the Air Force. When you get out, you'll be good. You'll have all the certifications, you'll get a decent job, all that good stuff. So so I did that for the first year, and it was great. I didn't really have to work. And then after that, when the tour was over, they're like, all right, you're going to go back, to your ship now. Because I was already assigned to a ship. So, which is it was a pre-com. So for those that may or may not know, it's a pre-commissioning ship. So, so we did that, and I had to be stationed. So I went to San Diego, ironically, in 9. But then I had to be shipped to Maine. So I was stationed in Maine for a little while. And that was an interesting experience, but to say the least. But we ended up bringing the ship back. So in hindsight, a pre-commissioning ship is a ship that hasn't been built yet. So you have to input all the systems. So basically you're building it from scratch. So technically speaking, like I have startup experience in the military. So, which is ironic.
I love it. I love that.
You think about it. And so we had to bring the ship from Maine all the way to San Diego. And then I spent the rest of the 3 years, doing that, going on deployments, all that good stuff. And I got out and was like, hey, I'm not going back to Brooklyn. Like, if I go back to Brooklyn,
for that, I need to see the world.
I might be dead or in jail, and I didn't want to be around that. So I ended up just staying in San Diego and trying to figure it out. So that's kind of the transition from basketball to being in the Navy.
Yeah, and so I love how you're just, all these like life journeys and like where you traveled to, you went to you went to different country, you went to different states, and that kind of built up, your resilience. And I think that's something that is very essential that most entrepreneurs have. And it's like, you get it in some of the weirdest ways. So like being able to be around different people, right? That's a huge skill set for entrepreneurs to now just be able to communicate, make sales, interact. And like you said, building up this boat from scratch allowed you to now understand the elements, right, of building something from scratch, going into the startup world. So now you are in San Diego, you just come out of the Navy, where are you at right now? And kind of what led you to deciding to go into, building a startup, working in tech? Like what drove that interest?
So I was always going to go into entrepreneurship. I didn't know in what capacity. I didn't have a plan. I started reading books such as, Inc. magazine and Entrepreneur magazine. I had no idea, right? But I knew eventually I wanted to do something. So until then, I was working, when I got out, I was working in the government sector, right? Go figure. Working in training and development. So just a sidebar note, I could speak from very different hats, from the athlete hat to the actual government worker hat to the corporate hat. So I've worn many hats throughout, my short life on earth. But getting back to what you were talking about, I was really trying to figure it out. And through that process, I don't even remember how I founded San Diego Startup Week. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, let me see what this is about. And they were explaining like there were different sections and stuff like that. So, I was going for that. Well, so two reasons. One was networking, and two, at the time that I went, I had recently lost my job. And I was trying to figure out the next move, and I got tired of like being in a house by myself and not having any like networking people, or I didn't know anybody in the city. So it was like, in order for me to get to where I need to be, I need to go out and network. I need to, get out there. So as I was doing it, it was a great event. And I bumped into the individual that happened to be the founder that started Startup San Diego. And he asked me how I liked the event and everything. And I was like, this is great, but there's no Black people here. What's up with that? And when I say that, that's not I'm not like prefacing my comments. I said that verbatim. The way I just told you is exactly how I said it.
That's how you got to do it. You're just like, where the Black folk at? Like, it's great, but
and yeah, and he was kind of like taken back by it. Like, oh, you just really told me that. So then he was like, yeah, we're trying to do that, but it's whatever. He said something to the effect. No, okay, whatever. So then I ended up speaking to another gentleman who said, hey, man, if you want to, do something about that, hey, come to the meetings, come to, I was like, what, I ain't got a job. Whatever. Like I was there to lose. Yeah. So I ended up going to some of the meetings, and I ended up volunteering for like a whole year there, just doing different events, stuff like that. And people would ask me, hey, what company do you run? What? I don't have nothing. I'm just here. But I enjoyed the atmosphere because I was meeting different people. I was connecting with different individuals, and I had no like ulterior motive. Like, it wasn't like, I'm not trying to raise a fund. I'm not trying to fund my company. I'm just here. I don't have nothing.
Like meet people like that.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was writing down like, all right, this person does this, this person does that. So keeping those relationships open until, I figure out what I'm going to do. So then eventually make long story short, one thing led to another. I ended up leading the diversity and inclusion track for San Diego Startup Week, which is the first time they were exclusively including diversity and inclusion And I mean, like every session we had was packed. There was a lot of people, there was a lot of excitement about it. And, you know, people were like, man, how did you find these people? And I'm like, they've been here. Like, I didn't, you know. But to really be honest with you, it was me during the year that I was volunteering, also doing the work and getting to know the ecosystem and know people who are doing the work. So when it was my time when it was my at bat, as they say, like I already had everything in place. So all I had to do was make a couple of phone calls and emails. Hey, we're doing this. We want you to, oh, okay. A lot of them was the first time on that particular stage.
Wow.
So, which people was like, yeah, this is great. I appreciate that. And, but obviously there was more that needed to be done. So I was just trying to figure out other ways to incorporate that into the organization, which actually led to me being the director of inclusion of the organization later. But I felt like there was more that needed to be done. And so I ended up becoming the director of Startup Grind.
Nice.
And so for the San Diego. And that's a funny story within itself. I'm gonna tell you this quick story. So I was on the phone with a homie, right? And he just asked me, yo, what happened to Startup Grind? Just random conversation. And I'm like, yo, I don't even know. Like, let me see what's good with that. So I ended up going on, we have a Slack channel in San Diego. Like all of the startup people, tech people are on there. So I just happened to ask, hey, who's running Startup Grind? So through various channels, it was this young lady who was the director, but she wasn't doing any events. And they haven't been doing events in a while. And so I hit her up. I was like, hey, what's going on with Startup Grind or whatever? And she was like, hey, you know what? Are you interested in becoming the director or whatever? I was like, yeah. And then she was like, you know what? I'll introduce you to the people up in Startup Grind, and because she had family obligations that she was attending to, so she couldn't do it the way she wanted to do it. And so she was like, hey, if you want it, it's yours. Just let me put you on the email. So I had to go through the whole process, interviews and all that stuff, and which is kind of funny now looking at it, but that's another story.
Because is it like volunteer?
Huh?
Because is it like a volunteer role, but then it's like a level?
Yeah. It was.
I know that.
It was doing a little too much.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's not adding up. It's not adding up.
But I tell you what, I made the most of the situation.
Definitely. That's
so ended up becoming the director. And then what happened was I was looking at the prior events, and some of the, most of the events were happening in a co-working space, right? Which is cool, but I wanted it to be for the attendee, right? And obviously we're talking pre-pandemic here. So I'm like, yo, the attendee has to get a different experience every time. So instead of me just picking a co-working space and saying, all right, we're going to do it here, I'll do that just in case. But our primary option is to actually go to the person's, work or company space and do it at their space. So you as an attendee get a different experience every month, because we were doing events every month. And before there was like 5-6 people showed up, I was getting 45, 50 every event. There was probably been one event that I had like 20 people. That'd have been the lowest. But other than that, I didn't have nothing lower than 30. And so right before the pandemic, we were going to do an event, and I had like 80 people registered, paid registered people. And obviously that didn't work out because I had to call off because of the pandemic. But so that was a success, and I'm still doing that. I'm planning on having my first in-person session either at the end, probably next month, at the beginning of next month. But anyway, so during that process, I actually attended there. So they have a yearly conference in Silicon Valley. And so I may be going ahead, but
No, it's
So,
fine. Yeah.
so I went to the conference, but it was my first time going to Silicon Valley, like as being part of the space.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to like do my own, as they say in design thinking, my own customer discovery and figure out, all right, why so many Black and Latin founders talking about they can't have access to capital and it's not fair. And, you know, depending on what publication you read for the day, it's either 1% or 2% of venture capital only goes to Black and brown founders, whatever the case may be. I need to understand what, because I didn't really understand because I was relatively new and I was in San Diego, which is a different demographic, let me just say. But so I was just trying to get the full scope.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I said, all right, I want to meet people in a coffee shop. So I set up an Eventbrite, right? Set up a link. Meet me here in a coffee shop. So you know how like in conferences, when they have apps and you can see who's coming to the conference.
Yeah.
I probably messaged everyone that I thought that would be interested in this meetup. Now, my expectation was like 5 to 7 people. If I can get 5 to 7 people to show up,
that's a good
then that's a good. I'm good. I'll talk to them. I'll ask them questions. I may exchange information with them. I don't know. We'll see. And then call it a day. I was good with that. That's not what happened. What happened was 80 people showed up.
Oh, snap.
I had people from, are you familiar with the Bay Area?
Not really. I'm East Coast.
Okay. Are you familiar with how San Diego area is?
No.
Okay, so check this out. So you live in
New York City. I'm in New York City, so try your best to compare it to that.
Okay, so I'm gonna hit you with this. That would be like somebody. Let's say you got an event. I'm from East New York, so let's say I have an event in East New York. That would be like somebody from New Rochelle or Yonkers saying like, "Yo, I heard about your event. I'm coming down."
Oh, so they put in work to get there.
Yeah. So it was people from Oakland. So the value is big. So people from Oakland, I didn't know they came down just for that event. They didn't have a ticket for the conference, mind you. So since I was a director and I had tickets available, I just gave them a code and just, I got you. But it was so much connection. It was so many conversations talking about access to capital and all that. And from that moment, that's basically how We the Plug started, from that event.
Oh, because you the plug with the tickets. I get it.
So that's how it started. So one thing always led to another, and from there, I just built We the Plug off of that. And so that's how we actually end up with founders across the country, because the founders that were in that room was from across the country and the world. We even had a lot of folks that were international. So footnote, we did it the following year. This was 2020. So that happened in 2019. 2020, right before the pandemic, in February, we did the exact same thing. We had 150 people in the coffee shop. Like it was packed.
Yeah.
So and at that time, we didn't have any infrastructure. We just did the event just to do it, and we missed an opportunity. So this time we ain't going to do that, because now we have infrastructure. We have a community platform and all that. So we actually plan on doing that in April and working with Startup Grind, because they saw what I did and they did some other stuff, and they were like, we want that. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how We the Plug started, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I love that story, right? Somebody probably comes across the website today and saying, oh, maybe he had access to this or that. But when you hear this back behind the scenes story of, no, it took many moments. It took taking a chance, taking lots of volunteer opportunities, right? I got my start in the tech and startup world very similar, just like taking on, volunteering for events, and like people would just see me there, like handling check-in, right? And then that's how people started to know my name, because they're like, oh, we're going to go to this event and she's going to be there doing check-in. And I'm like, that's how I got my free ticket. Like, you have to be strategic about your positioning. Even if you don't know the bigger picture, you knew that you were interested in it and you wanted to learn and then connect and level up. And now you've repackaged all of that to offer to the next person coming up, or somebody that's already in the field and want to get better. So talk to me about like We the Plug. Now that you guys have a more, it's really built out versus just kind of like you experimenting and trying things, what does We the Plug do for the audience, so that they could know clearly, what is the value proposition? Like, what are some of the stuff that you guys offer?
So before I answer that question, let me kind of build off of that event. And because there's a reason why I'm saying that. So originally after that event, I got with, a colleague of mine who actually, funny story, I hired her as a consultant, right? And so the little money I had, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pay her to help me through this process because I feel like I got something. And this was before the Silicon Valley thing. Mm-hmm. And through after that event, I went to her, I'm like, yo, this is what happened. And we started having conversations, and we were doing little events before. Mm-hmm. But then she was like, yo, whatever this is, I want to be on the journey. I think I can help you with certain things or whatever. So she ended up being my COO, partner in the business, Christiana. And so that's how it all folded together. And then it was kind of like a infinity group at first. It was more like, we want to support Black and brown founders. And that was kind of like our motto. And we ran with that for probably, I don't want to exaggerate, February, March, April, May. So for a couple months. So that the event happened in February. Mm-hmm. We started We the Plug technically in June of 2019. That weekend, the first weekend that we started it, we were part of San Diego Startup Week. So we kind of debuted there. We had a booth. Our website was up. We had banners. And we also had a pitch event that Saturday. So a lot of people came to the pitch event. We ended up getting Republic to sponsor the event. Nice. So we had 10 minority companies pitch. We had VCs as judges. I think we had three winners. Each winner had $5,000 onboarding credit to raise funds on Republic, because Republic is a crowdfunding platform for startups. Mm-hmm. So obviously we have the monies, but that was the best that we can do at that moment. And so we got a lot of press from that. And so from there, we were like, okay, we're going to do a lot of case studies on startups. So we had 5 companies that we did case studies on. They were from all over the country. And we realized that a lot of these founders, so sometimes founders say they're ready to get capital, but you really find out that they're early stage.
Yeah, they're not ready yet.
And they're not ready
looking
yet.
Looking at no investment. Yeah. Because
there's no proof of concept, there's no product market fit, none of that. And so since I was already trained in design thinking and I knew everything about that, that's kind of like my lane. I'm like, no, this is alarming. So that's where it changed from the affinity group, where we had a conversation and we're like, okay, we got to narrow this down. So there's a lot of organizations and companies that, you pretty much got to have your stuff together when you go into the incubator or their accelerator, right? But what about those individuals that don't have the network, right? That may not have the sort of education, right? Because there's a big difference when someone goes to, let's say, their local university around their way, right? And someone that goes to Stanford or even a HBCU or Howard or A&T, right? There's networks there that even when you leave, like you can tap into.
Mm-hmm. Like that alumni system. Yeah,
you need to start. So what about the individuals that don't have that, right? Because the numbers state that, I want to say, over 70% of Black Americans don't have a college degree. It's only 20% of Black Americans that have college degree. So you take that and you factor into where the most people lie, not having degrees. So we're like, we need to focus there. We don't need to focus. So that's where we narrowed it down to focusing on early stage on Black and Latinx startups and teaching them the fundamentals of how to build. So that's kind of what we do now. We have different programming. We have a pre-accelerator program. We talk about the fundamentals because, to be honest with you, there's a lot of conversation about scaling and access to capital. We need money to scale. But a lot of these companies are not even understand the process of how to build. So even if you do get $1 million,
you can fumble it easily.
You fumble the bag like no tomorrow because you're not understanding what to do with it, who to get first, get consultants to kind of do this or that. Like there's little nuances that one doesn't understand. And so what they're doing is just reading TechCrunch and go, we need money. And so we kind of get that idea out their head immediately and go, look, we got to figure out proof of concept and product market fit. Once we get that, you get some customers, now we can have that conversation. And now it's become easier, with such tools such as no-code technology, which is kind of part of the new Web3 lane and all that stuff, right? To where now you can integrate, AI, you can, integrate it and you don't need any coding skills, right? So now it's making it easier for the barrier to entry for folks to build something very quickly and now go in the market and say, go get customers. So that's what I'm in the process for. Let's go get customers. I'm not saying you got to get 1,000 customers. And I'm not saying that, but I know if you get a couple, right? And let's just say, for example, there's a product out there, right? You have a SaaS product and you have 7 customers. I know, okay, you got 7 customers, but you're staying at 7 for a while, right? We can work with that because we can adjust some things here and there to make it go up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's something to work with. So we know there are people out there that want to buy your product. And so that's kind of where our lane lies. And now you can, once you have proof of concept and you're selling product or services, now we build upon that. And then we can have a conversation about possible, venture capital, in which most companies, to be honest with you, don't need venture capital. So that's another misnomer that people
because it just sounds cool. Like, we could get money from somebody else that wants to invest in it. It just sounds really catchy. And it's just like, wow, there may not be a need to dilute your company ownership. There may not be a need to sell parts of your company and, have different people come in, and too many cooks in a pot is not what your business needs. Like you said, need that direction, that clarity, that ability to scale them first customers, because it's better to have 100 customers and that's, making you maybe, annually like $1 million or even $500,000 versus only owning 20% of your company and then still making $1 million because you gave it all the way to like VCs and different organizations to give you that kickstart, but you're not really taking that home. You're not really building that future that you envisioned. You're just this like small percentage ownership.
And I have to say this because I feel like it's important since we're talking about VC. The longer you quote unquote bootstrap, right, and actually get to product market fit and proof of concept and customers, the more the ball is going to be in your court when you finally go get that venture capital. Because the earlier you get it, the less control you have, because they're looking at it like, okay, I'm taking a risk on you. There's not necessarily proof of concept. So it's in the air. We don't know. I mean, we don't know regardless, but it's definitely, we don't know. But if you have customers in a base, now there's something to go off of. And now the term sheets can be more in your favor.
Yeah.
as you go along. And I think once we start getting that message out, I think we will be better suited. But I'm just not in the business of, and this is gonna be, this is gonna may rub some people the wrong way, but we are in the business of how do I say this?
It's
rewarding outcomes.
Yeah.
No, rewarding outcomes, right? So when I hear a lot of these conversations about, we're Black and we deserve X, Y, and Z. No, we deserve, rights. We have rights. We deserve equal opportunities for whatever, this, that, and the third. When we're talking about venture capital, that's something that's earned. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you got proof of concept. Oh, and so people get this misunderstanding when it comes to equal access and opportunities. That doesn't mean equality of outcomes. And I use the term like running a marathon as an example. I can train for a marathon and be in the best shape of my life. Mm-hmm. Does that mean I'm going to win the marathon? No. Nope. And so a lot of people, they get bothered by that. But I digress.
Yeah, and I definitely get where you're coming from. And, I think what needs to happen, like you said, is just building better networks. And it's like the old boys clubs and these things are made out of people's networks. And so some places were directly exclusionary and some places were, for lack of a better term, like accidentally, like you just kind of knew your circle. And so as organizations like We the Plug and, there's other stuff like Black Women Talk Tech and, the Backstage Capital, like as these organizations are saying, no, these little tight circles, they don't exist anymore. This is the whole network. This is, like you said, the opportunity exists. So we're not going to just, a Black owned or woman owned company comes up, like we're going to deny them because we have no idea about those products or services. We're going to hear it. And then if you have, like you said, the product market fit, you have the essentials that say, yes, this is a good investment. Let's take it and fly. And if you don't have it, it's not denying you because, you're a minority. It's like, you just don't have it. And so you need to get those skills and then come back to us and then we'll invest. So that's how I see it.
So I'm gonna drop a little gem, little jewel, right? So for those out there and you, Georgie-Ann, as well, there's a documentary called Something Venture.
Was and that Netflix? What we watching this?
No, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Look it up. Something Venture. I want to say is the term. Is the name of the documentary. Mm-hmm. I'm about to tell you right now. Yeah, Something Venture, and it came out, I believe, in 2010 or 2011. So it talks about the history of venture capital. Mm. And I'm actually going to do my own video on this, but it talks about the history of venture capital, how it started. They had a small little group of engineers, and it was the good old boys club. We're going to keep it a buck here. But I think some of our people in our space need to watch that and understand how they actually built Silicon Valley with the VC firm. So Sequoia, they talk about how that started, all the major firms. And I think we have a lot of folks out there that have a lot of name, a lot of brand. And if we come together in that same fashion and build our own stuff, firms, now there's an opportunity to build, our own companies and use our own money, right? Because obviously the numbers say that we spend the most money, right? So
the money exists. It gotta exist.
Yeah. So I think we need to take some of our cues from that. But obviously there are other factors that usually hinder us from doing that. So, but I advise everyone to go see that documentary.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, you've shared a couple misadventures already. But is there any stories that, of this journey that you've been on that you would definitely define as like, very unexpected or kind of like out of the box? Like, do you want to share any other stories with us?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of situations I've been in where I thought people were helpful, and they end up not being so helpful. And, you know, I at first, I took it very personal. It wasn't until recently I kind of like came to my senses and realized, well, people are operating out of their own, you know, I guess insecurities or needs, however you want to phrase it. And sometimes people come from a certain background that garners them to do that. And one of the things that used to really irritate me, and I'm going to use an analogy, is let's say I climb up a tree, right? And I use a ladder to climb up a tree. And I take the ladder. And then you come strolling in the tree. And then I tell you, oh, yeah, you got to figure out a way to climb this tree. And you're like, well, I see the ladder in your hand. Like, you're not going to put it down? I tell you, I look at you like, sorry. You got to figure it out. So those are the type of situations that happen a lot. And once you understand that it's going to happen, not everyone is a meanie like that, but once you understand that, then you cannot take things so personal. And when you understand people more. And so I think that's something, and I'm talking about internally. This is not white people, this is white people I'm talking about. So when you understand that from an internal standpoint, then you can kind of feel a little better about it and move about, you know, easily, I guess. So, but that's one of the things that I've had to fight along the journey. Like, for example, I was on Twitter a while ago and someone was like, well, why would we pay for a pre-accelerated program when there's so much free stuff on the internet?
Or something, yeah.
That's almost the same thing as saying, well, I'm not going to pay for coaching. Like, I could just, you know, go to Tony Robbins' page and, you know, listen to his quotes. Yeah, like, it's just like, sorry, there's a difference between, you know, looking at something on YouTube and actually experiencing something from that individual, from his or her point of view. So I just think that we've gone away from that. And I think we have to start investing in ourselves. So yeah, I digress from my soliloquy.
Yeah, and I definitely see where you're coming from with that, where, you know, I had to realize the same thing. And I think a lot of people that have been on the show kind of mentioned that, like, when you get to a certain phase, and I think especially for people that when you have a lot of passion about the work that you're doing and you really care about the impact that you're making, your heart is in it. Literally, your heart is in it. And so when somebody does something or doesn't do something or come off like, whoa, what's happening here? You feel it. You feel it because you know your intentions are well-meaning. And like you said, you don't know what the person's background is. And I had to learn that lesson the very hard way as well. And you know, hopefully the listeners out there kind of, you know, hearing these experiences will make you not feel too bad. You're going to go through it. It's going to happen, especially if you have your heart in it. It's going to happen. Somebody's going to break your heart out in these streets. And you have to be able to understand that it's going to happen, see it coming, and then kind of build back from there, build back stronger, right? Don't let that heartbreak turn you into, you know, a mini pants, right? Like, you don't want to become like them, like, oh, this is the only way business gets done and business gets solved, right? Innovation happens and industries grow because you as a person have to decide, I'm just not going to associate, I'm not going to interact in that way with certain types of people, but I'm still going to have my heart and put the work in the way that I want to do it. And it feels good and feels good to me, and just setting those boundaries. And I see you're about to say something, Louis.
Yeah. So I was going to add this real quick. So me being from the hood, being from the projects, like, we live by a certain code of ethics. And the transition from that to being in business and in corporate is two vastly different things. And you almost look at it like people in business don't have any ethics, right? And morals. And so the reason why I took it so personal, and I still do, but I react better to it, is because where I'm from, there's actual consequences for you not keeping your word, for you not following through, or you saying one thing and doing another, or acting funny style. There's a real life consequence to that. So we take that to heart. So when I went to the business realm and I saw a lot of people, for a lack of a better term, either being snakes or not working as hard as I thought they should be. And sometimes you'll get into a situation where you'll have people that have been doing what you've been doing before, and you come on and you do X, Y, and Z, or these deals are coming up, and they start hating on you. And I was like, wait a minute, well, you had the same opportunities as me. You decided to do other things. That's not my fault, you know? And so balancing those ethics and morals and putting into the business space was a real transition for me. I could tell you, because there have been times where I wilded out. You know, I told somebody, yo, I need 5 minutes in the box. You know what I mean when I say that? Mm-hmm. Like, I need my 5 minutes. Like, I was all that. And then I had to go, I'm doing this way wrong. Like, people are not from that life, so they don't understand. They just think I'm a nut job. And I had to understand, yo, these people, they never lived that life. So you got to relax. You got to see it from their point of view. Like, and that's when I realized not every Black person is a monolith. We're not a monolith, right? We come from different backgrounds. We have rich people. We have middle-class people. We have poor people. We have people from projects. So I had to learn that way later in life when I actually started paying attention to people. So.
Yeah. And I actually just finished Will Smith's book, Will. And there's like a scene that he's talking about in the book where he goes into like an office of one of like the I think it's like a director or writers on the script or something like that. But it's like one of the bosses, like they call him into the office because he was making changes to the script on the scene, and they're like trying to confront him. And so this guy is just like standing up and he tells everybody else to sit down, and he's just like kind of pushing all this power. And again, Will from West Philly, his guy JL is with him. So it's just like, again, not super hood, but like hood enough. It's like, listen, you don't play, you don't talk to people in certain ways, those ethics, those morals, those actions that you take. So the guy's like kind of standing over him, kind of barking on them. And they got so ready to like square up and literally fight him. And then their manager is like, what is wrong with you? Like, why would you, this is a 63-year-old man. He's like, he was standing up, kind of, getting all crazy, getting loud on us. And so it's like that culture shift, right? The expectations that we have. I totally see it. And it's so funny, like hearing it out loud and realizing it's not just, a few of us. This culture shift or shock, especially when you go into different fields, is so real and so true. So we're coming to the end of the interview now, and I'd like to ask you, what piece of advice would you want to leave with the folks that are listening to this episode? What piece, what one thing, and we've talked so much and there's been dozens of gems, but if it was one thing you want them to take away or one piece that they want to take with them, what would that be?
I would say, wow, that's a lot. I can say a lot of things, but I would say this. Try to keep your enthusiasm. This work is hard. When you're doing stuff in service of others, it can be difficult. Yeah. Like it's a lot of trial and tribulation. It's definitely not for the weak. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you figuring out, when you're gonna pay your rent and light bills and all that, and that's the truth. But through that, you gotta stay enthused. It's gonna go downhill real fast. So, like like Jay-Z, my first song, where Big was like, "Yo, you gotta treat it like your first project every time." That's how you gotta treat it. You know what I mean? Like everything is new. You gotta be excited about it. There's always an opportunity to do better. Like I have a saying, right? Like opportunity wakes you up. I'm messing it up right now. Obligation shouldn't wake you up in the morning. Opportunity should. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what I say when I do my talks and speeches. And usually, like we have obligations in the morning, whether you have children or work or whatever, right? We're human beings. We have obligations. But also there's an opportunity to be better, like opportunity to meet people, network, build things. Mm-hmm. And so it can be hard because we're humans, right? But, sometimes we gotta look at the lighter side of things to get through the day. So I just say, just keep that positive energy flowing no matter what.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. Thank you so much for being here on the Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship podcast with me. Folks that are watching or listening to this session, information about We the Plug, as well as how to contact Luis is going to be in the comment section, the description section below. But, I'm really grateful to have had you here on the show. And thank you so much all for listening. And I hope you took notes, you took these gems, and you guys keep going and keep pursuing your dreams as an entrepreneur in corporate, wherever you are. Just know, like he said, stay enthusiastic, let opportunities wake you up. There's an opportunity to be great and do amazing things each day. Regardless of if you're obligated to do it or not, there's an opportunity to be excited about it and start again. So thank you so much.
No doubt.